Hey everybody, Jack Reeder with Future Pastimes. This video I'm going to be talking about the custom playmat that I've made for my edition of Dune, the classic Dune game, the 2019 edition from Gale Force 9. The playmat itself is the board, but it's kind of a hybrid board between the 2019 edition of Dune and the board that comes in the Dune Conquest, aka Movie Dune version that came out in 2021. And that is a streamlined version of Dune. It's designed to play much quicker and be much more accessible to people new to the Dune universe and board gaming in general, although it still has a lot of good depth to it and makes for a great entryway into Dune at large. But I play a lot of classic Dune, and I enjoyed a lot of the stuff from the Dune Conquest board, and I've been working on my own version of Dune that I call Dune Abomination. And one of the big differences is that there's only one spice card that is drawn for advanced rules, but it has double spice blows, which is something that we added in Dune Conquest. So let's take a look at the different boards and how they compare, and I'll talk a little bit more about my playmat and what it does. So here we have the Dune map board from the 2019 edition that was based on Ilya's version that he made available before this one was out. And it's great. It's based on the classic Dune board from 1979, but it's a little bit more deliberate in the color choices for the territories and whatnot. I will point out that it does have these handy symbols on here on the cities, so you know you have the ornithopters, and in advanced, you know you've got the spice collection in Carthag, Arakeen, and Tuix as well. And so this is what the board looks like when you buy Dune. Now this over here is the Dune Conquest board, which as you can see, it's the same layout overall. It does have a few differences. So the first is some of the territory. So if we go back over here, you can see we've got this territory, Rimwall West, tiny little rock territory right on Arakeen, but we removed that one in Movie Dune because you can't blow the shield wall in Movie Dune, at least not yet. And so, and because everybody can move 3, it doesn't really matter about the ornithopters themselves. So we felt like streamlining the map was a good idea. We also made some of the territories bigger. So most notably here, Windpass North, which has a spice blow, but it's a much smaller territory if we look on the classic board. And so this is a territory that sees a lot of action, and it's this tiny little wedge right here where you're trying to fit all of your forces. And it's, as you can see, I've got the little plastic protective shields for mine, which have the cutout for the Bene Gesserit. But yeah, it's really challenging to get a couple of factions in there. So it's a little more manageable if we look at that. It's still a small territory to be sure, but it is bigger. And some of the other territories are a little bit larger as well, just because we were reclaiming the real estate. So those are the big differences. The other is the number of spice blows. So there's more spice in Movie Dune. So we look at the greater flat there has a spice blow. But if we look at the classic board, there's no spice blow in the greater flat. There's no spice blow in Cialgo Depression or Cialgo East, but we do have that here. If we look at the Movie Dune board, Cialgo Depression, it's a little hard to see, but there's also one there in Cialgo East. So those are the big difference. So if we now go over to my playmat, you can see that it has generally the Movie Dune aesthetic, which I do like. It's a little bit closer to photorealistic. It's not photorealistic, of course, but it's definitely closer. And I just really liked the look of that. I have made the strongholds stand out a little bit more, so they kind of fade into the background a little bit here on the Movie Dune. So I wanted those to stand out a little bit more. I do have the icons in the cities and in Tuix. But I've also kept the extra spice blows. So we've got Cialgo East and Cialgo Depression, the Greater Flat. I did bring back Rimwall West because it is kind of a critical territory in classic Dune. So those are the big differences. And then and part of that is because I do have the custom spice cards that have the double spice blow. So here we can see the spice blows for this card. One of them is Cialgo East, which is a new spice territory. And so, and there's spots here on the cards, for the discard, for the deck. Same thing with the treachery. This area covered up is for another video, so I won't spoil that for now. The other thing I will point out is we have OH gap up there instead of old gap, and that is because on my old and tattered version of Dune, the map in the back of the book clearly says OH gap. So if we zoom in there a little bit, if I can get it to focus, there you go. It's not old gap, it's OH gap. So that's just for me. So there you have it. That is the board. It's slightly bigger than the one. You can kind of tell that. I got the tokens in there for reference as well. So it's a little bit easier to get all those factions into this space. With the spice, it's still going to be a crowded territory. There's no getting around that. But overall, I enjoy this. I like the look of it. I like the size of the playmat. A big shout out to Brain Food on the Dune Discord, because I definitely stole some of the layout elements that he had put together, especially for the icons up there and the phases. I added the moons on there because I just really love the look of that from the movie. But there you have it. That's the comparison of the three boards and my playmat. So Dune Abomination, again, is my version of Dune. It has some minor adjustments, one of them being the spice blows. I've made some minor faction adjustments, and I'll eventually do some videos kind of covering how those work. I haven't yet found a great solution for making the faction cards. I'm experimenting with some stuff, so if you've got some tips or tricks for nice physical versions of the faction cards, be sure to share that. I do have a tabletop simulator version of Dune Abomination, which I'll release in the coming year, and make that available for whoever wants to play it. But yeah, for me, it's just a slight tweaking of things. I don't want to necessarily say a rebalancing, but it does punch up the Fremen a tiny bit more. It's advanced Dune, and the faction sheets, they don't separate the abilities from basic to advanced. It's just, your advantages, because I always play advanced when I do play. And I've done things like taken the Alliance stuff off the faction sheet since it's already on the Alliance card. And what I've added instead are your advanced Karama effects and how Karama stops your advantages for your faction, even though I also have the separate reference cards. And I still will play the Dune the way it has been designed and intended to play. And I actually have some special playmats for that, which, again, I will share in a separate video as I talk about it. Because, again, I love Dune. It is one of my favorite games, and I will continue to play it as intended. But I'm somebody who can't help but tinker and play around with things, so I will continue to do so, and you can't stop me. So there you have it. If you've got ideas or suggestions or comments, please share them. I'd love to hear them, especially on different ways that you have played Dune over the years. What are your house rules? What are some things that you would change if you could? Some tweaks that you've made. I love to hear those sorts of things. And anything else that you want to say about Dune, let me know. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.